doesn't like them, they're not supposed to be there, and he can't walk through them. Which makes sense because during the Pythain era, those walls right there would not have been here. And he said the only other concern he's got is he's afraid someone's going to take his ball away.
Aww.
Now, my junior ghost hunters brought this in. I think this is the third or fourth ball they brought in. Petey says he has a big rubber ball, and he gets in trouble because he bounces it on these wood floors, and it bothers the old people. Which again makes sense because on the other side of that wall was the widow's dormitory. So, she's gaining credibility, okay? She's already told me about the blue room, and she said a couple of things that make sense in here. Now, she also goes, okay. Remember I mentioned downstairs that she's physically pushing something back? She said he's being very adamant about this, and he's coming through pretty clear, so I'm going to repeat exactly what he says. It doesn't make sense, but I'm going to repeat it. He says the night the room exploded with all the people was very funny. There's no way she could have known that. I hadn't started telling that story until just recently because it was pretty funny. And then I decided to test her myself. Something I didn't mention that I mentioned on the historical tours is we've got to interview a lady that was an orphan here from 1928 to 1936. She's given us some amazing stories about this building. And she said that the administrator of the facility, the boss in charge, when she got here was Dr. Patterson. She said all the orphans loved that man, who was just a fantastic, kindly old gentleman. His replacements, however, were anything but Mr. and Mrs. Gay. It's okay, go ahead and snicker. It took me 2 weeks before I could tell that story with a straight face. But, and I don't mind telling the story because she said Mr. Gay was a bad man and that he was handsy and not in a good way. So, I decided to quiz this lady. I said, does Petey know who Dr. Patterson is? And she said, he's standing right here. You ask him yourself. I said, okay. I said, Pete, do you know Dr. Patterson? And she smiled and said, oh, yes, he loves that man. He's like his grandpa. He loves Dr. Patterson. I said, okay, that jives with what Mildred said. I said, Petey, do you know Mr. Gay? And she said, I don't understand why, but do not mention that man's name. He's scared to death of that man. And I said, this time I started to tear up. I don't know why, but I just got this wave of emotion, and I apologized. And I said, Petey, do you know who I am? And she chuckled and said, oh, yeah, he knows you. He thinks you're funny. I said, well, that's good. And I said, Petey, do you ever get upset that I come through here and I tell the same stories over and over and over again, and I basically talk about you like you're not here? And he said, the lady said, he said, nope. He just thinks all these people come in here to see him and play with him. He likes it. I said, cool. And then I said, Petey, do you know who Tamara is? And Tamara's the owner. And she looked at me and smiled and said, oh, yes. He loves Tamara. And again, he's coming through very clear right now, so I feel like that means I need to tell you exactly word for word what he's saying. When speaking about Tamara, he says, she's making my home not dirty again. Let me say that again. She's making my home not dirty again. A grown-up would say she's cleaning my house or she's cleaning up the property. But a child with their diction and their grammar would say she's making my home not dirty again. That's cool. Now, whether Petey's here, whether he's not, whether you subscribe to this stuff or whether you're here for great fun, it's at least neat. And that's why I like to end this tour in this room. Because Tamara has saved this building. If she hadn't bought it, it would be a pile of rubble this very moment. She's preserving it for the future. She's preserving it for us to see. And she's preserving it, if they're here, for the people that have gone before us, like Petey. Now, when Petey said he would get in trouble for bouncing this ball, all the other boys would get in trouble too. And finally they have enough, and occasionally they take this ball and throw it out the window. Not this ball in particular, but they throw his ball out the window. Which made Tamara go, okay, hello. At least once a month she'd hear something get hurled out of that window. She'd send her mom to look for what happened, and they'd never find anything. So like I said, this lady's gaining credibility. Last Sunday, I had about 12 people on the ghost tour. And I had just told the story about the ball, and a lady stepped forward and said, Petey, darling, I've got a nephew. I would never let anybody take that ball from me. About that time, the dog ran in here, grabbed the ball, and ran right out. Well, we all chased after the dog, and when we caught up to the dog, just about the middle of the hallway, those meters went absolutely bonkers. They went nuts. And I grabbed that ball and brought it back in here, and then they died. I love this building. I love this room. This is a good before shot, guys. This is what they were working with. And this is where Petey's at. He's happy, and I'm happy to be here too. I want to thank you guys for coming out tonight. I had a lot of fun. Please come back and see us, but if there are no more questions, we'll go ahead and move down.